Welcome to the First Step podcast, where we chat with remarkable people about their personal and business adventures. Our goal is to give you little jewels of knowledge that you can adapt into your life to form your own destiny. Some of our guests will be familiar, others not, but the common thread is they had a plan and took the first step to getting where they are today. Here's your host, Nerissa Chaux.
Hello, today I promise that you'll walk away feeling inspired, empowered, and just that little bit extraordinary. Jellaine Dee is the founder and the creative director of Cherry Blooms. Jellaine founded Cherry Blooms at 24 years old and rapidly made her footprint in the global market. I was super keen to meet Jellaine as I met her many years ago at a big event where she was promoting her most famous product, Brush-On Fibre Lashes. It was her pioneering lash products which catapulted her products firmly into the international beauty industry. Starting as a new business owner to today becoming well on her way to creating a $100 million company, Jellaine has taken the market by storm and has the professional accolades to prove it. In 2013, she won the prestigious Telstra Young Women's Business Award. This was the beginning of her winning a string of professional awards, including the 2014 Trailblazer Award for the Gold Coast Young Entrepreneur Awards and the Business Achiever Award in 2015 at the Women in Business Gold Coast Awards. Cherry Blooms is sold online, is available at David Jones, spas and salons across Australia, and is also sold at the Nordstrom department store across America. Holding a Bachelor of International Business and Integrated Marketing Communications and a Diploma of International Business, Jellaine has used a combination of formal education, life experience, and her savvy business acumen, which was peaked during her corporate career, to become one of the most successful Australian entrepreneurs. Jellaine is a powerhouse. Enjoy. Jellaine, welcome to the First Step podcast. How are you?
I'm really well. Really happy to be talking to you today.
Fantastic. Are we allowed to say this? We're in your gorgeous home?
Yes.
In your gorgeous office, lots of pink,
yes.
Lots of great products.
Got to be in an inspiring atmosphere to get your best work done, I think. You can't be in sort of like a cluttered space that just doesn't inspire you. It's really important that you, for me anyway, that I like where I work.
Yes, absolutely. No, I agree. So let's get straight to it. I thought for those that aren't familiar with your story, if you could just start at the beginning and give us a quick snapshot of where you're from, where you grew up, your exploration and adventures you had before Cherry Blooms.
Sure. Gosh, I'll try to summarise it as quick as I can. Basically, I think I'm at the heart an entrepreneur. My first product I ever sold was when I was about 9 years old, because I wanted to have enough money to buy all the Hello Kitty things that I listed, that my allowance wouldn't, I couldn't afford it basically, so I had to make my own money. That was my first entrepreneurial experience. And when I was 12, my mum asked, it was my birthday, what do you want to wear? It's your birthday. And I picked a business suit and a briefcase. Like, I just knew I had to be a businesswoman. And so I did all the things you're meant to do, get good grades, go to school, go to uni, and I wanted to be Carrie Bradshaw and work in New York City in advertising. And I did that. I got my job in advertising in a very good top agency here in Brisbane, and got so much experience from it. I was totally thrown in the deep end and had some of the hardest accounts to work on, lotto accounts.
Oh, yes.
So you never know what's going to happen.
Yes.
It all depends on if someone wins the jackpot or not. So anyway, after really doing that for a couple of years, I realised, gosh, I actually want more freedom. And I used all that experience and started sort of dreaming on what would that look like. And I was also very creative, and I felt that job wasn't creative enough for me. I needed to, instead of me talking about other people's logos and their campaigns, I wanted to have my own campaigns and my own logos. So I used to brainstorm products that I wish existed late at night, and my first name was actually Cherry. And so the name Cherry Blooms came from me coming home late at night after these really long days, blooming with ideas. And that's where Cherry Blooms was born.
Okay.
And so that's where that's why I called the company Cherry Blooms. And I guess from then it went from sketches to me turning up at factories, giving them samples of products that I wish existed, and just starting that, starting like everyone else does, getting that first prototype. And then people going, wow, that's amazing, that's great. And then you go and just taking the next step. So I guess in a summary, I'm a businesswoman. I've always wanted to be my own boss. I wanted the freedom in being able to create whatever I wanted. And I just kept going. I didn't know where I'd end up. I just knew that there had to be more than what I was doing at the time. And I was in my mid-20s, so for me it was sort of like a quarter-life crisis. I was really examining. I did all the things right. I was 24, 25, had all the shoes, all the handbags, went on all the trips, had great friends, a boyfriend, had everything on paper, great career, but in just deep down in my soul, I was yearning for more. And I really got into personal development. I picked up a book by Jim Rohn, who I didn't know at all. The only other personal development I knew was my mum listening to Tony Robbins in the car as a kid, or Oprah,
Yes.
And I picked up this book and it was, written for me. And then I just, I realised what law of attraction and all that stuff was back then, and really just kept doing that and spending as many hours as I could learning more and more about personal development and all these people that I resonated with in business and life. And Tim Ferriss was a guy who I really resonated with, his whole philosophy, and I just learned about Gary Vaynerchuk back then, and used to pep me up when I was at my cubicle going, yeah, Gary, that's right. And and have always just invested in myself, in my mindset, and just went for it. So that's a little bit about how I got started.
Fantastic. So I guess you did talk about that in terms of the books and personal development, but what other influences inspired you to make that leap to opening your business? Because I find that there's a lot of people who have jobs and maybe start something on the side, but from my understanding, it's you created it, quit your job, and then it's like it's going to happen.
Yeah, no, that's a disaster if people do that. So what I did was I did my corporate thing.
Okay.
I worked at nighttime, like Gary Vee says you do. You do your job, then you go home, have dinner, spend time with your family, then you work from 7 o'clock to 2 in the morning. So I did that, and I worked on the weekend. So with my prototypes, I would just turn up at these market stalls all around Brisbane, and I would make anywhere between, let's say, $300 to $1,000 a day.
Wow.
Okay, and I'd be starting at 3, finishing at 1. So I still had my weekends, even though I worked. And then it got to a point where I was actually making more money at the markets than my job. And then they were at a point where they wanted to start promoting me and investing in professional development. And I just felt bad. I didn't want this company investing in me when I knew that I told my bosses, look, this whole business thing I'm doing on the side, I'm actually wanting to do this, I'm just giving you a heads up. So I negotiated, because I was good at my job, I negotiated to work from 5 days to 4 days.
Okay.
And I had a few family things going on as well with my mum and custody of my siblings, so I was also helping her in that. So I was doing that, doing my side job, and eventually I got so much more joy from working for myself, even though I had to do these crazy hours, and I thought I could justify leaving that job that was steady, because I was getting enough income from the markets. And I put all the money that I put in the markets into my first trade show, which was a lot of money for me.
Yes.
Thousands
and
and thousands
was that the trade
of
show
dollars.
in Las Vegas?
No, that came after. My first one was it was called Fashion Exposed in Melbourne.
Okay.
It was so expensive that we couldn't even afford a hotel. We had to couch surf. And luckily we did, because the people I met then are some of my best friends now, and they even went to my wedding. So, just serendipity. It's serendipity, right? But just whatever it took, I did it. And that first trade show I did, I had $10,000 worth of orders. Wow. And I thought, wow, that is proof of concept.
Yes.
People want my product. And that gave me the courage to be able to resign, because I knew I had these orders coming that I could fulfill, and I had this market income. And, I'm going to have to start door knocking, basically, between Monday to Friday instead of working. So I gradually got there. I didn't just kind of just
have
quit
a great
on the
idea
spot.
and
yeah,
just
no.
go, "I'll just
and I
make it
think a
happen."
lot of people think you need to do that. It's a gradual transition. And I, like, you know, you kind of burn the boats. I did not want to go back to corporate after that. I had 70 grand of debt as well, quitting my job.
Okay.
So for me, the only way to get rid of that debt was to work my ass off in my business.
Yes.
And it took me years to do it, but I did it. And I lived on very, like, see, the girl I was back then was a shopping addict. I was at a mall. That was my hobby. That was my cardio. That was my free time. I was a shopaholic because I was trying to fill a void in my life. So it was like telling an addict, you can't go to a shop anymore because you don't have any more money to spend. You've got I lived on 20 grand a year, and not a lot of people would do that, but I did. So I said,
Wow.
not going to shops. My free time involves meeting up with friends. And, you know, I was very creative and resourceful on how I could just work.
Yes.
And the free time that I do have, I'm going to do it where I'm not having to spend all this money. So it was a lot of discipline and a lot of commitment for years to do that, working 7 days. And that's not everyone's willing to do that. I had to. I didn't have a choice because I didn't want to work in a corporate job again. I just couldn't. And so I said, I'm not working in this cubicle to pay off this massive debt. I'm going to start my business, and it's got to work because there's no other option. It was either going back to corporate where I felt like a prisoner or I go to Centrelink and live in the doll, and I'm not doing either of that.
Yes.
So there was no option.
Yes.
There is no option. And I guess the people I met along the way, they had husbands, they had boyfriends. I actually left my boyfriend. I was back on the couch at my mum's house,
Wow.
sleeping in my sister's bed. And put everything in storage and just went back to basics. So that whole transition was probably the hardest but most liberating part of my life because I was in control of what I was going to do, and it was up to me, no one else. And I think sometimes when things get hard, and they never get easier as you grow. There's always better quality problems that come along.
Yes.
I just think, gosh, if I was willing to do it back then when I was 20-something, come on, we can do this. And that's what gets me going. That's why I have photos of me when I'm in my 20s to remind me she was fearless and she was bold, and you can still be that, and you've got to keep that going.
And I think if I can make a comment, you look very happy in every one of those.
Gosh, I felt the happiest.
You're not posing, you're actually being real.
Do you know what? Being broke on my sister's bed without a boyfriend and not really knowing what's going to happen next week was the happiest I've ever been, because I was free. And not everyone, I guess for me, freedom is really important. That's a very high value in my belief system and my values in life. And so, that's why I was happy, because I was free.
That's great. No, that's fantastic. So when we talk about your first few years, so after you've gone out and you've quit your job, what were your expectations? Did you have expectations around, in my first year, I want to have this many orders, I want to earn this much money? What was your business plan?
My plan was to have enough money to have to live in the week and pay some of these creditors that were calling me.
Yes.
That was all I wanted.
Okay.
I didn't care that I had to do that for years to pay off the debt. I just didn't want to be back at that cubicle. That's my mentality back then. Obviously, when things really took off, I didn't have a formal business plan. I just knew that if I made X and it covered my costs and I made X profit, then that was a good thing, and keep doing it,
Exactly.
So, and I remembered things from what I read in books, you should be, X times whatever you paid for. So my profit margins from early on were very good. When I talk to business owners now and their profit margins are quite crap, I'm just like, gosh, I would never even start it if I knew I was only going to make $1.
Yes.
Out of that unit, know?
Yes.
So luckily, because I read a lot and learnt a lot, I applied some really key principles in business as a novice. So I had very good profit margins. I had very lean costs. I didn't have staff.
Yes.
Eventually did get staff. And so a lot of the things I just naturally did because that's what I was reading that you should do. And it's only now that I meet other people and I'm just like, gosh, that's a tough working with maybe 20% margin or something on a product-based business. It's not a lot for me. I was working on like 1,000% margin back then. So anyway.
No, that makes total sense. So just for our listeners, because I think what a lot of people think is I'm going to have a business and they envision I want to earn $100 million a year and sell my business at 10 years.
Okay.
So what I want to understand is that wasn't your vision when you first started.
No.
It was just to
live,
to make a living,
to survive,
and pay off debt,
and just survive. And then after I was getting some traction in paying off some debt and getting a great customer base, I started to dream on what could this be. And at the same time of doing all that, I was again just upping my game in personal development. I was a bit of a seminar junkie and went to any free seminar about mindset and business and success. You name whoever it is, I've probably seen them live or whatever. And it encouraged me to dream and write things down and goal set. And to this day, like I have this picture of my life in 7 years. I wrote that before I had a business. And it had pictures of what I wanted my house to look like and how much income and who I'm going to, it says here I'm 34 years old, living in a $3 million home, blah, 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 blah. I'm married. I'm walking down to see my daughter and my nanny. And, like, that's my life now.
Isn't that amazing?
And I wrote that when I was, having a quarter-life crisis, couldn't pay my bills, but that was my dream. Wow. And I have it laminated in front of me every day. I don't read it every day, but it's there to remind me. Because, and that's when... that puts me back to this whole law of attraction thing. Like, I really, really believe in it. Like, it starts out with small little things that just happen and you get, and it's coincidences, which was really just law of attraction. But I just harnessed it to the point where it actually got me some really, really big things.
When I was 17, so I actually left school to become a church minister. And I actually had a vision book. And it was 10 pages and of things that I cut out. And for me, it was about people, because obviously that was going to be my career. And I suppose my career is still very much people-based. But I remember even like words, I'd cut them out of Woman's Day just anything I could find. And then one day I had a boyfriend at the time who found my vision book. So I didn't share it. No one knew I had one. He found it in my room and he made fun of me. And I always remember that. And, it's actually a really good reminder because I haven't done one since then. I think because I was, you know what I mean? Like it was quite a traumatic.
The boyfriend that I was telling you about that I left was because he was having an intervention with me on the fact that I was doing the wrong thing by wanting all these things. Why can't I just be happy having a career? And he thought I was getting brainwashed by some of these workshops.
So you're becoming like a cult.
Yeah. And so I was like, no, this is what I want.
Personal development.
Exactly. So he just didn't understand me. I mean, we're friends now and he's totally supportive. We can see now. But back then, no one believed in me. Literally, him and my mum had an intervention with me, like you do when you've got someone with like a gambling or a drinking problem. They actually came to my mum came over and they sat me down and I was bawling. And I had to fight and say, no, I want to do this course, or I wanted to do this course. And it was like a lot of money. It was like my last credit card. And they were like, no, you've got this.
Because they're seeing it as practical, as in you're getting yourself in more debt.
Yeah, that, and they think I was getting taken advantage of.
Yes.
But I just knew that I had to go and do this thing. And the things that I learned at that course are the things that have, made me who I am now. And so now they see the value. And so anyway, so I really had to believe in myself. And I didn't have, all my friends aren't entrepreneurs. They don't really quite understand what you go through. They don't resonate with what it's like to have to worry about staff and pay bills and all these things that go on. And look, it's not for everyone. It's hard. It doesn't get that much easier. And you've got everything on the line.
That's it.
If all else fails, everyone else can go get a job. I can't just do that. To me, it's like going to jail. I can't go and get a job again. It's got to work. So I think when you've got that kind of desire, there is no option to fail.
That's it. And I think too, just on that point, in my family, so my husband and I both grew up with parents who own their own businesses. So my mum owned her own business, and my father and Efren's parents owned their own business, and all of them very successful. So we were brought up with that sort of mentality. But fascinatingly, with my siblings, it's always you work too hard, you don't have a life. And I'm like, you don't understand, like, we're self-employed. If we don't make money, we become homeless or we don't eat. So there's this driver there that we love working, but you know what I mean? Like a lot of people who have a job and have a steady paycheck don't understand the sacrifices.
No, they don't. It is a calling. Like
is.
It's like, you know, I could decide to be a ballerina tomorrow, but I have no talent to be a ballerina. Like, you know, you have to have a certain level of skill set to be an entrepreneur.
That's
because
right.
there is some mental resilience that just you've got to really build up.
Yourself.
It's like going to a mental gym every day.
Yes.
You know, you can't just... Not everyone's cut out to be an entrepreneur. And I think right now it's kind of dangerous where they're championing entrepreneurs and they're making them like it's a sexy thing to get into. But it's very dangerous for people who are not cut out to be an entrepreneur. Because it can, you know, you can lose everything. And so I guess if...
People
really
see the glory, they don't see the hard work, and that's what I think is really important that people uncover, is that we can learn from people like yourself.
Yeah.
You know, that it's not easy. It's not like you wake up and you're in $1 million home.
No, and look, the way I see it is you've got to be it can't be an interest. I get people and friends as well. It can't be something that you're kind of interested in. You have to be obsessed with it. Like I was obsessed. When I had my first product like that I designed, I was obsessed with it. I lived and breathed it. I talked about it. I used it. Everything revolved around that. I was obsessed. It wasn't like I'm a little bit interested in that thing. And that's a kind of commitment you need, because if you can't, you know, if it's not like I heard recently, if it's not a hell yeah, then it's a hell no.
That's exactly it. Actually, that's our staffing policy as well. We heard that at a networking function, actually, and this gentleman got up and CEO of Sendall, and he said that, and we've actually made that a policy in our business. If because we see it as a team, yes, we're the leaders, and we're there to guide the ship, but at the same time we want investment from our staff. And it's like anyone who comes on board, if it's not a hell yes from everybody in our team, it's a no.
Yeah, that's right.
So I absolutely believe that. That's fantastic. So going on that topic about the startups, and I think the interesting thing is this is our third startup. So you learn, as you know, you learn so many different lessons, and even now we're learning different lessons from our first startup. So what most people try to find the cheapest way to do things, cut corners so they can do certain things themselves. From your experience, what did you try to do yourself that you realised you actually couldn't do?
Yeah.
What was something you outsourced that was expensive that you thought, oh, I could have just done that myself? And what were the things you were glad you spent your money on?
Yeah, so the first one was the cheapest way to do things. Basically, I did everything myself. And I think what you can't skimp on is branding.
Yes.
I think because that's your first impression. And obviously the first few years we had to skimp on that. Now we don't. A lot of things I have delegated to agencies or to staff, and I've actually taken all back. Because if they don't actually align with you and understand you, you're better off doing it yourself, because you're just going to get annoyed that they did the wrong thing.
Yes.
And the fact that you spent that money.
Yeah.
So I think don't rush into it. I think in the past I rushed into things thinking it's going to get better, and it didn't. So that's either with staffing, with agencies, and in the end, it's easier if you take it in-house, and then find the rock stars in-house who really understand you, who really understand what you mean, and I find that sort of that's my lessons in the last sort of few years. That when we did get some money coming in, like in a big way, we started really, those lean startup things that I was talking about kind of went out the window, because we thought, well, now we're a big player, we've got to go and spend big player money. And it's ridiculous.
Yes.
You go, no, it's like, no, throwing a bunch of money at someone to do something that you think is going to be better isn't necessarily going to solve it.
That's
Sometimes it can be a detriment.
Yes.
And it's actually better if you do it yourself. So I think it's a real gut instinct thing. There's some things you just can't outsource.
Yes.
And there's some things that you absolutely can, and it's good for you to do that. Like a lot of our admin stuff and some of our accounting you can, but, you know, the stuff that really helps, like our branding and our messaging and our PR is really what got us here. And so we are sort of keeping that all back in-house now.
Right.
So...
No, that's fantastic. No, that's great. So obviously Cherry Blooms over the past 10 years has just grown dramatically. What was some of the key inflection points that has led it to what Cherry Blooms is today?
Yeah, I think, you know, I acted quickly. I have a product that is a problem solution thing that most
It is
women,
amazing. If you haven't got one, buy one.
Most women, 16 to 60-year-old women, have the same issue of wanting long lashes naturally without the expense or the time to do your lashes. So it's either mascara or eyelash extensions. And there wasn't a Gap product, and we were the Gap product. We were first to market in Australia.
Yes.
And again, I tested it at a high tea event, and I had 15 women around my booth to try the product. I had a little sign that I made that day in a Word document that said free eyelash extensions.
I was there that day. That is exactly where I was.
At
it was
Stanford.
Yes.
At the high tea event.
At the high tea event.
In 2012.
Yes.
Holy moly.
Because I remember, I think I kind of emailed you and said, but what attracted me is because my mother owns a recruitment firm in the beauty industry. So I'm obsessed with beauty. I like to know everything that's going on.
Yeah.
This is my natural influence. You had this stand and you had that sign, and I was like, I am going to try this out. And it was so quick, and that's when I was like, bang, here's my money.
Yep. What was really interesting about that was I was not expecting that. I had to call my 12-year-old sister to get on a bus and help me take back orders. I ran out of stock.
I was lucky I got one. I must have got in really early.
And that was, you know, gosh, my packaging was terrible, but I didn't care. I'm just like, these two little silver tubes need to get to these women. And then I knew that this has to go far and wide as quickly as possible.
Yes.
And that's why I was on a plane every second, third week. Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, just doing trade shows and doing events. You know, we've done all sorts of events through the years. Some were hits, some were misses. You know, Sexpo in Townsville was definitely a miss. I'm not doing that again. But some of them were absolutely amazing, and we kept doing them for years, and we multiplied it. So that was a big thing that I remembered. Whatever works, you multiply it.
Yes.
You know, so that's what I did. And then I thought, gosh, after doing it for a year, if it works in Australia, it's got to work in the States. And so that's where I ended up in Vegas and did my first trade show in Vegas. Didn't know anyone. Ava was 6 months older at the time. I had one employee, and we turned up with 10 suitcases and all our trade show banners. Didn't know anyone. And we did exactly what we do in Australia. We had 15 women lined up the entire day waiting to talk to me, to have a go of the product. And within finishing that trade show, we had distribution in all of Canada.
Wow.
One of my first major orders was for 10,000 units. And that was like a holy shit moment for me.
Absolutely.
I was literally doing 12-unit orders to hairdressers in Sydney to now 10,000 units to a very key player in the distribution business in beauty in Canada. And within 6 months of that trade show, we had all 50 states of America, because word got out that Cherry Blooms had this amazing product. It was first to market. And then within 6 months after that, we were in Nordstrom department stores. And really that's when the company was in multi-million-dollar turnover. So you go from a small lifestyle business, which is what Cherry Blooms was,
Yes.
to a proper multi-million-dollar business.
Yep.
Because of the decision that I made that if it works in Australia, it's got to work in the States. And I just turned up. I could have stayed home. Ava couldn't even sit up on her own. She was 6 months old. We had 11 internal flights in the States with 10 suitcases. We couldn't even get a normal taxi. We had to get a limo everywhere we went because we couldn't fit all our luggage. It was a logistical nightmare, but I pulled it off, and thank God I did. And so it's those bold moves that got us where we are, because I didn't care what other people thought. All I cared was what I thought, and I really listened to my gut. And I think my biggest learning in the last 2 years is turning that down, because I started to think I need other experts to tell me what I need to do. And guess what? They were wrong. It was always me. Mm-hmm. It was always my gut instinct. I turned it right back on. And so that was a big moment for Cherry Blooms. And that, to me and to everyone around me, including my husband and my mum at the time, that was like, okay, she knows what she's talking about. She's not crazy. This, she is onto something. And no one got in my way. Not that they ever were, but they always kind of were ready to kind of wait for me to go, yeah, this isn't going to work, or quit. And it wasn't an option.
Wow.
So that was huge.
Wow. Okay, great. So, there's so many articles on you, and you've been profiled in so many different places. So we've heard a number of the challenging stories you've had in your life, and really hard periods. But what are some of the hard periods that no one's heard of before that you feel comfortable in sharing with our listeners?
I guess there's a few. There's life and business hardships. Life, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but gosh, whenever I do tell someone who asks, it's like, wow, that is like a book. And I'm only up to age 10, So, but basically, I've had a tumultuous childhood. I went to 7 schools. I've had 3 stepfathers. I've been in domestic violence situations with my mother, fleeing for our lives. I've had to change my surname because I had one of my stepfathers wanting to track us down. And so, I'd lived in halfway homes and housing commissions all my life. And that's what was the driver for me to have a better life. I just wanted to be this independent young woman who went to uni, got a job, and did what back then was my goal. And then when I got those things, I realised I want more. I want to be a businesswoman. I want to be in control of my life. I think my yearning for freedom stemmed from having such a strict and tumultuous upbringing, because I had some stepfathers who were very controlling and a mother that was very strict and controlling. So that's why I've got this, you can't tell me no. Like, you can't say, no one can tell me what I need to do. I have to be in charge of my decisions. So that really shaped my drive, I think. Not being always the new girl at school, basically having to leave your bedroom when you're a teenager, not knowing where you're going to live, not knowing when you're going to see your friends again. It really builds a different level of resilience and strength that I had to, that I cultivated earlier on. And I was into goal setting back then. So I had lots of little goals that I wanted for myself. So that really shaped who I am. And I guess the hardships in business, gosh, like most people, staffing and getting it wrong is really hard. Recently, when we had all this demand for our product, we couldn't actually keep up because we were such a small company. Before we went to the States, we didn't have the capital to go and put, to produce such quantities that some of these people wanted. And they want payment terms where they, you don't get paid for 30, 60 days. So we were in a real, we had a real funding gap there. And so I raised capital. And as soon as I made a decision to raise capital, because we had a business auditor to come in and he basically said, you've got this massive opportunity, you need to go and raise some capital. And I'm like, oh, okay. It didn't even occur to me that I could actually go to the market and find an investor. I thought I'd have to go to the bank or whatever. And because I was 20 something, I had no assets to my name. Anyway, so I made the decision I need capital, and I was in a VC office the next day. That's how serious I was.
Okay.
And I had a few brokers basically hear the story, and within a couple of months of deciding that, we had an IM, an information memorandum out, and we had 2 investors.
Wow.
Lined up within a couple of months of me deciding that we needed money to be able to fulfill these department stores and these distributors. And so that took an amazing 6+ months of intense due diligence, because gosh, they don't tell you about that in Shark Tank. A lot of those deals fall through because they don't pass the due diligence, and it's it's just hands on deck, and the whole company is all about getting this deal across the line. And that's what that's what 2016 was for me. And luckily I found an amazing investor who has been such a blessing to the company, and I have such great respect for, the chance that they're taking on us, because we are high risk. When you look at other things that people can invest in, but our trajectory of where we can be, we can easily do it with the right investor and the right team. And so that's where I'm in the midst of at the moment, is now that we've got the investment and we can go and do all these things that we weren't able to do, we've had to say no to a few big deals because we just couldn't literally not deliver the stock. We're now able to talk about some big volumes, bigger volumes than what they were. So that was a huge and hard period of my life. Like, it was, anyone who's gone through due diligence in an acquisition, hats off to you. Like, it is hard work. It is hard work. It's because you've got to run the business at the same time.
Absolutely. So what, because, I do read a lot about investors and the challenges, because a lot of people think it's easy. Oh, I'm going to get someone to invest money and think that's it. Where you hear a lot of stories where 90% of investors want to have some involvement with your business, and they want to make critical decisions that may not be in line with how you want to take the business, or as the founder, how you want to direct. So what has been your tips about managing that on an investment point of view? I
feel, to me, I welcomed it because I was making such big decisions on my own. It was actually great to bounce it off someone else where their money was on the line, and I think my investor trusts me enough because I got the business to this point without them and without the so-called experts.
Yes.
Like, I did everything bootstrap, just going for it and going with gut instincts. So I have a pretty good relationship. Like, not everyone can say the same.
Yes.
I have board meetings now. We have monthly management face-to-face meetings, and we have fortnightly calls. And that's great because it keeps us doing things properly and it keeps them informed. And I appreciate that. Like, of course, you want to know where you just tipped in some money.
Yes.
They want to nurture that, and they want to support us because they know that I don't have all the answers, and that's why I wanted smart money.
Yes.
I didn't want just money for the business, but I wanted some direction on some things that we've never had to deal with before, So so I have a great investor and a great board, and I think it's rare to find that. But yeah, so that's my experience. Not everyone can say the same thing, but I think it's important to respect their time and their opinion, and just being adults about decisions. And they trust my judgment because my investor doesn't have anything to do with the beauty business. They are not from this industry, so I'm educating them on how things work, and so they're looking to me as the expert at the moment in the industry, because they're still getting up to speed.
So when you're investigating or you're looking at hiring an investor, not hiring, but going down that road, what are some criteria that a business should be looking at to assess the investor?
That they can bring us level of skill set and governance that you need. I think I'm very much big picture, visual, creative, and my investor's very much analytical, into detail, into compliance and governance. If he was big picture, creative, and all those things I am, we wouldn't get anywhere. Like, he really does balance out what the business needs.
Yes.
And so that was one. Again, I mentioned smart money. So they've got to be able to bring something to the table that we really, really needed. And you've got to get along with them. You've got to be able to have a meal with them and have a drink with them. And because this is, they're your new business partner, essentially.
Yes. It's a great way to look at it. Yep.
Yeah. You've got to make sure that you get on. If you don't get on, it's going to be very difficult to kind of build that relationship and trust in the years to come, because it's, we've got a 3 to 5 year plan together.
Yes.
So it's a long time. And if you're spending every fortnight together, you've got to make sure you get along and that you really respect each other.
Yeah, so. Great tips. No, fantastic. Okay, in terms of the e-commerce side, like, I'm meeting people all the time who are looking to open their own shopping site. So actually, someone I placed in a job yesterday, I saw her last night. She's 21. And she said, I've seen a gap in sunglasses. Mm-hmm. And she goes, my age group are obsessed with this brand and I think I can go and competing with them, and asking me things like that. So it's really easy for people now to have an idea and start something. So with all these platforms like Shopify, Amazon, Alibaba, where you've got access now, it's easy for someone just to go, oh, I'm going to import $5 lashes, or I'm going to import sunglasses. It's so competitive. What's your secret sauce? Now, obviously, you can't reveal trade secrets, but what keeps you or Cherry Blooms in mind in front of customers, suppliers, retailers, that gives you the advantage?
I have to say it's actually easier to enter the market, but it's not easier to make money in the market right now. I think it was actually easier to make money years ago when it wasn't saturated and algorithms were a lot easier with advertising online. But for us, our business wasn't an e-commerce business. I mean, obviously we have a website, you can buy the product there, and it's still a revenue stream. But our core business is distribution. And, department stores, that's our main channels to market.
Okay.
So the way to get those sorts of people is, like you said, you saw us at an event, at a trade show, you saw the frenzy of people that we caused. You came away remembering our product and loving it. So that's all we do. We just keep doing that. We have, the first rule of business is turn up. You've got to be at these events. You've got to be where these people are. And if your business isn't distribution and department store like ours is, you still need to do those events because
absolutely.
Look, everyone's doing the same thing online right now, and you've got to stand out. And I think the biggest thing that people haven't really mastered or systemized is word of mouth marketing. And I think that is a thing where we are bombarded with, everyone's got pretty flat lays and pretty whatever. Everyone knows bloggers and people are paying someone to say that. Like, it worked when it first started, but really the thing that has never changed in advertising and marketing for the last 100 years is word of mouth marketing. Yes. And the only way to do that is to turn up.
Yes.
And to do an amazing job that people remember you, and you have to have an amazing product because you've got to ask your fans to refer you. So I think referral campaigns are really important. It doesn't cost you hardly anything to tell people if they love you, they should be able to promote you either for free or for an incentive.
Yes.
But just having a Facebook store or a Facebook page or a Shopify store doesn't mean you're going to be successful. If anything, they're just mandatories, but it doesn't mean that you're going to make money on doing that. There's so much more depth in online marketing right now that you need the absolute experts to make really good money.
Yes.
And it's hard to find those people because
so
they're already
true.
run off their feet. They don't even take any more new clients. So either you've got to find those people and pay them top dollar, or you've got to learn them yourself. And so if you're not willing to do either of those, then you're also going to have to just do, the old school thing of being in front of people.
Absolutely.
Like, I just thought, where is it in every state of the country where women are gathering around, and I had a criteria, there have to be at least 5,000 women in one spot during that weekend. And if they're there, I'll turn up. If it's Sexpo Townsville, I'm going to go because there's women there and women need eyelashes.
Yes.
So I tried everything, and the ones that didn't work, I didn't do again. The ones that did, we kept doing it. I found teams in those cities so they could continue doing it. So it wasn't relying on me. So it kind of became like a little franchise almost, I just multiplied them. And this is a thing about me, which is a bit weird. I'm very visual and creative. I'm not into numbers and figures and analytics. However, one thing I did do was I always captured everyone's email address. And then by doing that, I knew exactly how many customers we demoed the product, and how many we sold. So I knew my numbers are 1 in 2 women who tried my product bought it. So then, knowing that, I could take a chance on doing a $5,000 to $6,000 trade show or an event because I knew my numbers. If there was only going to be 200 women there, I wouldn't do it. If there was definitely 5,000 plus women and our numbers were 1 in 2, and that's just how I was able to make those decisions. And I think people just turn up at a trade show. They don't know how many people that they spoke to or gave samples to. They don't measure how much business came from that within 30 days, 6 months, 12 months. So they can't, you can't you can't manage what you don't measure.
That's right.
And that's despite me not being amazing at maths, I still don't know my times tables. I know that, I know that side of metrics is important. So,
no, that's fantastic. So you did actually talk about this earlier, but I don't know if you can expand on it. This is an amazing achievement because not many people realise that you're the first Australian business to land a deal in all of the Nordstrom stores in the US.
Yeah.
And obviously you're in at least 5 other countries that I know about.
Yeah.
So talk us through about cracking into the US market, because it sounds like it was fairly easy for you, that you went to a trade show and suddenly all these people wanted you.
And people just assume that, right? But you know what happens? Because we made such an impression to the Canadians, and word got round to the distributors in America, they all picked up the phone and said, you've got to take cherry blooms. Have you heard about cherry blooms? And so we had business coming to us in the States.
Yes.
And because everyone's talking about what's hot this year, what's hot this season, some of the department store buyers and brokers had heard about us. And so because we created a buzz. So
you weren't even chasing these people?
No, we have a broker that does all our deals in our department stores, and he came to us, presented it to Nordstrom. The buyer loved it, that they decided to stock us all in 110 stores before Christmas, and no one had ever done it. Like, he was shocked. He'd been in the industry for 15 plus years. He thought, they'll launch, they'll probably put you online first, and then they might put you in like 13 stores. No, she wanted all 110 stores. And so he got excited, and that's why, we've stuck out with him too, and he's got us into Dillard's as well, and we're working on a few others I can't talk about yet. Yep. But so, again, it's down to an amazing product. Yes. And then when I looked at research, and the reason why I can say that we're the only Australian company that can do that is Napoleon didn't get that.
No, that's so true.
Shoes of Prey are only in 15 stores, and I don't know if Lorna Jane's in there yet, but so we got in all 110, and that's so fantastic. That was like, wow, that was a real moment for us.
So the key to success into breaking into the US, you feel, is make sure you get a good broker.
Great broker. Brokers won't touch you unless you've got a great product and you've got potential and you've got great PR. So we very early on started to get some PR going, and I mean, we didn't spend a heap of money with a big agency. We just went with a freelancer, but we were getting enough PR to show that we were getting some traction. And again, the just the frenzy that it causes at trade shows, and the word of mouth, I think just when you just keep doing something right, you just get rewarded. You really do. I think if I didn't do those things, if I didn't turn up, none of this would have happened. You just never know. You really don't. And I think the other thing I learned was make friends with everyone. Like, I made friends with this amazing lady, and she was just like, wow, your brand is going to be huge. I've got to introduce you to this person. And, I went out to dinner. The best relationships that happen are over a glass of wine and a meal. Yes. Because they get to know you, and people want to help people who they like. People want to do business with people they like.
Absolutely.
And so I was just saying yes to lots of opportunities, to meeting as many people as I could, and real relationships, and you look out for each other. And I think that's key. You've got to network properly. I could have easily said, no, I've got a 6-month-old baby in the hotel room, and the babysitter wants us to wrap up now. But I'm like, no, I'll go out to dinner with you. You're very, you're very supportive of my brand. I really like what you're doing, and I've had multiple encounters with multiple people who have got that same story, where they just, wow, you've got this huge potential. I want to help you, and it's those sorts of people that that help you.
Absolutely,
and you help them back, and it's just like karma,
Good. No, I love that. Okay, great. So my understanding is the American market is quite different to the Australian market. Is that correct in beauty?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, so my gosh.
What are the main differences? Like, how did you go about pitching yourself? What's the difference there to here?
Everyone loves the story, obviously. They love
it's a great story,
the passion and the boldness of me just turning up. I guess the difference is I deal with a lot of middle-aged men in the States. All my distributors and most of my contacts are all men.
Okay.
And you would think in the beauty industry it'd be all women, but it's not the case. So that was really interesting, you know, because I'm used to dealing with hairdressers and most of them are women. And so I had to build rapport with these guys who didn't wear beauty products but understood business, and they understood great products. And so it was really what do you call it? Having enough conviction that if you spend time promoting us with your sales reps, we'll make you a lot of money, because our product sells a 1 in 2 conversion. And I knew what I was talking about. I had a lot of conviction in my numbers, in what we've done, in the PR that we generated, and all of that. So they were impressed. If I just turned up and kind of didn't know what I was talking about, they probably wouldn't have taken me seriously. But because they knew, like, I guess made enough of an impression on them that they wanted to help build the business, because they get lots of products sent to them all the time.
Yes.
You know, and they have to pick and choose what their sales reps are going to focus on. And luckily, you know, they saw a huge potential in us.
So, Jellaine, what's the one question that no one has ever asked you that you wish someone would?
That is a great question. Gosh. I might have to skip that one for now.
Okay.
Because I only got to page 1 when I saw this. So I would have prepped that question a bit better, but that is a great question.
Cool. I'll have a think about it.
Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to in the next 12 months?
Oh, gosh. It's definitely this new product launch. So I'm working right now on the packaging for my new lip product, which is going to be amazing, because it's not... it doesn't really exist everywhere at the moment. So it's a matte lips that's got a plumper in it, because most plumpers are glossy.
Yes, they are.
But the best thing about it is proceeds of that is going to the charity that I'm supporting, which is in the Philippines. So where my roots are, helping street kids and women in domestic violence situations who are basically living on the street. So the campaign for that is Kiss Poverty Goodbye.
Love it.
So I'm so looking forward to just launching it at Cosmoprof in Vegas. I'm filming behind the scenes of me going to where I was raised in the Philippines, on the streets there with those kids, and basically just getting a glimpse of the other side of me. You know, people see me as this businesswoman, but there's so much more to me than that. And I think the one thing people don't realise is that my grandmother was such a huge influence on me. She was a humanitarian, and she was like this amazing businesswoman who owned many businesses growing up. I used to watch her, you know, just run all these different businesses, and she was like the first female to open a private investigation agency in the Philippines. She knew how to, you know, use guns. She was a tango teacher. She owned bakeries. She owned school bus companies. She was like crazy. Like her CV is... she typed out her CV on a typewriter. It's like 3 pages, and I put them as artwork. Because if you read it, you're like, this woman did all this stuff. Like, it's like,
it can't be just one woman who's done it.
She's done all these things in her life.
Wow.
But the biggest one was the fact that in our neighborhood, everyone went to her when they had problems. Like, she was the ombudsman. So if someone was getting ripped off here by this person, she would go and like mediate. If so-and-so, like, how many times I had to go with her because some husband had beaten up their wife, and she would mediate them and counsel them. She was this ombudsman that everyone just went to. And I remember going into our kitchen, and there'd be these homeless people sitting at our table, and some of them had, you know, mental health issues, and they'd run off with our plates, and I have to chase them down to get the plates back. Like, this is this kind of woman that just took in stray animals all the time. So I really, growing up, seeing her do this, that's what gave me this drive to give back. So to this day, I still support about 8 families in the Philippines.
Wow.
So people don't know that about me. And I think that's the other driver. Not only is the freedom, but it's also, I want to be rich and give back. That's all I want to do with my life, because I think the more money you make, the more people you can help.
Great.
And I never waited until I had money to help people. I helped them when I had no money and when I have money. So that's what they need to understand as well, that you can do both. You can't, people go, one day when I have enough, I will help more. You know, I've been helping when I didn't have money. Even now in business, I don't have time, But last year, was it this year? Gosh, last year I did Dancing CEOs and raised
Yes.
funds to help women in domestic violence, because I know what that's like to live in a women's refuge and to just leave the house when something, critical happens. I did a documentary this year.
Wow, when's it coming out?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
It's a little bit embargoed at the moment. So all I can say is I was homeless on the street for 10 days with nothing. No money, no possessions, nothing. And I experienced firsthand what it's like to be homeless in Australia. Okay, so I'm doing all these things because it means so much to me to not only just give back but understand the mentality of these people, because they don't live in our reality. And sometimes just giving the money isn't going to solve it.
That's it.
So that's why for me, I wanted to experience what it's like to be homeless. And I got so much out of that. It's on sometime this year. They haven't even told me.
Okay. As soon as you find out, make sure we know.
I cringe because I'm not able to see what it looks like. It's going to be 1 hour and 3 episodes.
Wow.
So it's me and a few other entrepreneurs in Australia.
Okay.
So
not out at the same time. Like you're not like together. You know, like the what is it? The CEO where they sleep out.
No.
And they're all sitting together. It's not that.
No.
Okay.
We were all dropped off in different parts of Melbourne.
Okay.
With no contact with each other, and every couple of days we would just debrief what we've experienced. So yeah, that's going to be
it's going to be powerful.
Very
powerful.
And so and then this year it's definitely my Kiss Poverty Goodbye campaign in the Philippines that I'm going to be really focused on. So that's a huge driver for me, is helping and contributing.
And what's the name of the charity?
It's called SOS Children's Village Philippines.
Okay, and can people contribute money now?
Yeah, they can go online and donate. And I picked them because 95 cents of every dollar goes to the villages.
Yes.
And it doesn't go to this big kind of conglomerate of CEOs around the world. So I didn't want to fund anyone's salary. I wanted to fund these children who needed the money. And it took me a while to find one that I really trusted, and that's why we're filming the behind the scenes of me getting to know them face to face, getting to know the mothers. They're sort of the figureheads of the houses that the children live in, and then also just catch a glimpse of what it's like in Manila and where I grew up and my friends, and maybe a bit of a catch up on some of the people in that photo of me in the 90s with those kids and where they are now. So
wow. I can't wait for you to release that video.
Yeah,
and,
it's going to be fun.
It.
So that's what I'm looking forward to in the next 12 months.
Great, thank you. So a couple of quick questions to finish off the interview. Now this is a hard one. If you could only spend 2 hours a week on your business, what would you do?
For me, where I am right now, it would be. And I think it doesn't change from the early days. It's always sales-related activity. You always have to be income producing. At the moment, I'm creative director, so I'm mainly looking after sales, marketing, and R&D. I'm acting CEO at the moment as well. So sales is key. You've got to make sure your sales funnels are robust and they're on track. And if they're not, that's what you need to focus on. Because there's no point trying to do all these other things if you don't have a solid sales funnel coming in, because the bigger business you have, the more you've got to risk, because you've got now staff and overheads that I didn't have before. So I would spend 2 hours doing income producing stuff. So that would include decision makers, dealing with my various brokers and agents around the world, and working on the business.
Okay,
definitely.
Great. Fantastic. And what do you spend a silly amount of money on?
A silly amount of money on? Gosh. I've been a lot better than I used to be back in my days. I wouldn't call it silly. My husband probably does, but when I won the Telstra Business Award, I didn't know you got prize money. So to me, when I won, it was like a bonus that they gave you a few $1,000s. I was like, wow, that's a cool bonus. So I thought, what could I do? Because that's like a huge moment for me to be acknowledged in that way. So I bought myself a Chanel handbag. a classic 2.55 Chanel handbag that I could pass down to my daughter. And I could say, I bought this with my Telstra Business Award winning prize money. So it wasn't like I could have easily like paid some bills with that money, but I thought, no, I'm going to keep this as an heirloom for her. And that was like, because I love Chanel, I love her story, I love how she's such a game changer for women's fashion, and her ethos as a businesswoman. So I just wanted to, like, I'm not into all designer stuff. I love Chanel though. I'll do, I would spend money on Chanel.
Okay.
So that's probably the silliest, because it's just a handbag in the end of the day. But yeah, a handbag that could be a car,
Yes, I understand. Yeah. No, that's great. And when are you happiest?
When I'm in my flow, when I'm creative, when I'm in moments like this, when you can kind of feel like whatever you're saying might help someone. Because I used to like soak up as many interviews and just snippets of wisdom from other people, and it all kind of just created my business acumen and my mentality and mindset on life and business, because I've just accumulated what I liked and applied it. And so I feel like when I talk and share my story, I'm not telling anyone what to do. I'm just saying this is what I did. Might not work for you. That gives me joy, because I know that later on someone's going to be inspired to do something that they probably wouldn't have done, and that's like a legacy. And to me it comes naturally. I love sharing my story. I love helping other people. I know what it's like. I totally get the hustle and what it takes. So I remember early on I used to read about these women in these magazines, and I'd meet them at a cafe, and I'll kind of go, are you so-and-so? I think you're really cool, and I just wanted to say hi. And they would kind of go, who are you? Like, just look down. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I put that person in such a pedestal. It happened all the time. But these weren't even really that big entrepreneurs. So I thought, that's it. One day, when I become one of those women in the magazines that they profile, I'm going to be really nice and give my time to people. And that's what I do.
And you've done that today, so thank you.
Thank you. And I think it's great because, you get bogged down with emails and meetings and reporting, that for me, I need to top up my energy. So it's great to be able to talk to entrepreneurs who get it, and I can just share something with them that tops me up again.
No, it's been fantastic. Thank you. And 2 first step questions. So if our listeners are in startup mode, what would be your tips on building a loyal following?
It's interesting. You've got to work smart and work hard. So every customer you get right now is crucial. Do your best in retaining them, because it's a crowded market. So if you've done really well now to get whatever customer base you've got, keep them. So if you have to go above and beyond and email them all, or create an email funnel to keep them retained, then do it. If you've got to incentivize them for your loyalty, do those things. Don't abandon them. That's really important, that once you get a customer, you keep them. And the new customers, that you are compelling enough for them to want to buy your stuff or follow you. So, there's only so many automated things you can do right now, but people really value the fact that you've done something out of your time, like a personal touch. Like, what I can't stand right now is those people that leave you these comments on Instagram and it's a bot. It's fake. I hate that. It actually is detrimental to the company that does that. But if you actually took your time and did something, and just do a Gary V. Like, he answered every single comment and question and email for the first few years, and he built a massive company because people really appreciated that. And it just speaks volumes and adds way more loyalty than just an automated response or just a bot.
Yes.
Like really taking the time.
I think it's remembering that everyone matters. Yeah. And everyone has an interesting story, but also everyone wants to feel important.
Absolutely.
And it's that acknowledgement. It's even just recognising, actually, I've got a fake name in Instagram. I don't like social media myself, but I have a fake, I love Instagram. And it's funny, I never comment. I never post comments. But there was one particular service in the UK that I was like, if this is in Australia, like, how do I find this service? Do you do it in Australia? Do you have a partner in Australia? Because I'd love to experience it. I wrote it on Instagram, no response. And they only had 8 comments, so it wasn't like 1,000. And then I sent them an email as well. I went, I'll find out their business email address and and explained. No response. And it was like, it's just, if I could just get an acknowledgement that you even got my email, because now I feel like a bit of not a stalker, but I was like, I'm a buyer, or I'm a potential buyer, and you can't even be bothered.
Yeah, I think business people get lazy. They don't have enough systems in place for them to make sure that every lead coming in is being actioned and acknowledged. And I think every business, whether you're big or small, has this problem, and it's just a matter of going back to basics. It's about customer service, and acknowledging your customers and making them feel special and giving them a reason to stick around.
Absolutely. No, I agree. Fantastic. And lastly, if someone has a great product and wants to launch internationally, what would be some key tips that you would let someone know?
From Australia, it can be tough if you don't know your margins and your shipping. So you really need to get the pricing right, because there's no point doing these deals if you're not going to make money doing it, because it's hard work. It was really, really crushing when I did my first initial deals with some distributors, and I thought, wow, this is going to be huge. And then when you add up all the costs to do it, it actually wasn't that much money to be made. So you got to know your numbers up front.
Yes.
You got to understand that they're not going to want to pay for displays, for flyers, and so it's got to be costed in, your cost of goods.
Right, that's a really good tip.
Yep, they don't want to pay for any of that, and usually they, you've got to be okay with their payment terms. Some people don't know what their payment, they don't pay for 30 or 60 days, and they want, depending on your industry, at least 45% margin. So you've got to know all those things before you even consider going to the States. If you don't know those numbers inside out, there's no point. Just stick to Australia, because it is hard work. And now with things changing with tariffs and things with the Trump stuff, that also is going to play with your numbers, if depending on where your products are made, etc. So getting the business side of things right is number one. And number two is having that compelling story on why their 50 sales reps or whatever should give your brand enough time to put in front of their customers. Because, you know, if they can only carry 50 brands a year, you got to explain to them what kind of revenue you can bring their customers, what sales supports do you have, what promotions do you have, what's your PR. You got to show that you've got traction. They're not going to take you if you've got no traction. That's the thing. That is bottom line. They're not going to touch you if you've got no traction. You've got to prove yourself in Australia first. And that's what I did. I proved myself in Australia, show them on a platter what I've done. I said, my country has 22 million people. This is what I've done in 12 months. Your country has 300 plus million people. And they get it. Because the product's right. I had everything lined up. My pricing, this is what I'm planning to do. Because I researched what I had to do. And then
before you presented it.
Exactly. And when I got feedback, because like when we first launched, we had no displays. The first lot of feedback was, you need displays. So the first thing I did was make some damn displays, because it will get lost on the shelf without a display. So that's what I did. So you just take it on, apply it straight away. Don't wait around, just get it done.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the First Step podcast with Nerissa Chaux. For more great stories on those who took the first step to change their world, subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. See you next time.